Wes Streeting, your Cabinet colleague, Lucy Powell, dismissed the grooming gangs scandal as a dog whistle issue, presumably meaning a coded signal to racists. Is that how you and your colleagues see the abuse of hundreds of children in British cities?
No, and I don't think that's what Lucy intended to imply in a heated debate on Radio 4, and that's why she's apologised for what she said. I think that's the right thing to do, but you know, I've known Lucy for a long time. I don't think for a moment she would have meant or wanted to imply that raising these issues, talking about these issues, is dog whistle.
But you see exactly what the problem is here. It was a heated discussion, and quite often it is the heated discussion that reveals what is actually in our minds, rather than the curated remarks we prepare for television.
I don't know that that's fair.
I don't know if it's not fair. It is just a fact that sometimes that's where people really reveal themselves. So the question I think that would be in many people's minds is this what is really being thought?
No, and look, I would actually say I've got a different take on that exchange, which is we all make mistakes. I've made mistakes in the past. I'm sure I'll make mistakes again in the future. The important thing is when we make mistakes that we own it, we apologise. That's exactly what Lucy's done. On the substance of the issue, this is something the government takes extremely seriously, and it's why since we've come to office, we've cracked on with making real changes that will help to support victims. We've asked every police force in the land to go back on historic cases, to look again at all of those where no further action was taken. We've expanded victims' access to an independent panel which was set up to look at historic cases, but actually we've got rid of the time limitation on that and said, actually, everyone should have the right to go to an independent panel. So, and there's more to come. So we do take the issue seriously. We're not beating about the bush on some of the thorny issues in there as well, around ethnicity, collection of data, transparency.
But this is not the first moment this has come to public attention. A few weeks back, the Safeguarding Minister, Jess Phillips, was in an argument or debate in the House of Commons about this, and you have consistently refused to accept the demand for a national inquiry. Now, I don't want to replay that debate, but you can see why people would think that the government actually really has an attitude to this which says it's not that important, we're not going to give you a national inquiry. When somebody, the opposition, pull you up on it, you dismiss it as the Tories never did anything, and so on.
Well, I mean, that is true.
You see how that would be read?
Well, it is true to say that we had 28 recommendations of the
But you're about to do it again, aren't you?
But
you're about to say this is make this into a political thing.
No, actually, that's not. Actually, I'd prefer the opposite. I'd prefer that we could all move together on what is a serious issue and shouldn't be a party political knockabout. But inevitably, what we've seen since the general election is people who were in government only moments ago saying, you know, why aren't you doing this, that, and the other? Have a national inquiry now. If they felt so strongly about it, they had the opportunity to do it and didn't. And there's a string of recommendations which were not implemented. And the fundamental point, Trevor,
is your point
is we could have another.
Is that what you're trying to say?
Yeah. I do think there's been a degree of playing politics with it, and we would rather that didn't happen. I think that was actually what Lucy Powell was driving at on Radio 4 on Friday night. And it came across in a way that she never ever intended, and that's why she apologised. But I think, look, stripping all of the politics away from it and all of the political noise, there were 28 recommendations that were made by the independent investigation into child sexual exploitation. We're getting on with it.
You've made that point. Your colleagues have made...
But the action is really important, Trevor. I think, and that's what I say this morning. Action speak louder than words. We're taking action, and we'll continue to do so. That's the most important thing.
All right. Just very briefly, is Lucy Powell's job safe?
Yes, look, I don't... as I say, I think she's made a genuine mistake. She's owned up to it. She said sorry, and we'll move on.
All right. Let's talk about moving on from last Thursday. You lost 2/3 of the seats you contested. What went wrong?
Well, I mean, I did lots of campaigning in my own patch where we had a by-election run corner across the country. There were definitely individual issues that were raised, but the fundamental thing I heard wherever I went was that same frustration that people voted for change at the last general election, they're not yet feeling it. And I can understand why that is. If I sit here, in fact, as I have done before, and said NHS waiting lists are falling, they've fallen 6 months in a row, the 2 million more appointments we promised, we delivered 7 months early, we're actually over 3 million and we'll be even higher by July. Well, for hundreds of thousands of people who have been seen faster and come off the waiting list, great news. If you're one of 7 million cases still on there, this is the point at which you start shouting at the telly saying, hang on a minute, you're saying the NHS is improving, I'm still waiting. Now, both those things are true. The NHS is improving, but people are still waiting. If Rachel Reeves was sat here, she'd be saying, well, interest rates have come down 3 times. Great news if you've refixed your mortgage at a lower rate than you would have done, but for lots of people won't have felt that yet. And similarly, wages rising higher than inflation, absolutely welcome step in the right direction. Does it wash away the cost of living crisis? No. So I think people are impatient for change, hungry for change, and so are we.
All right.
And it is frustrating. Change does take time. And all I'd say to people, we've not even been in a year yet, so give us time, give us the benefit of the doubt, and give us the chance to deliver the change that we promised.
We get the point. Your leader responded by saying your plan is to go further and faster. And congratulations, you haven't used the cliche yet. Let's talk about what that actually means. The signature choices you've made since you came to office last July: cutting winter fuel allowance, cutting overseas aid, cutting disability benefits, allowing a record number of people to cross the channel in small boats. Which of those are you going to do more of? Which of those are we going to get further and faster on?
Well, actually, in terms of the choices that we've been able to make, thanks to the investment that we've raised through decisions that I accept have not been popular, I think every single measure that the Chancellor has taken to raise money for the NHS and for other public services has been opposed, and not just on winter fuel or employers' national insurance, but getting rid of the exemption on VAT for private schools, the non-dom tax arrangements she's gone tougher on the wealthy. People always oppose the means of raising the money, but they're always calling for more investment. And you do have to make politics is about choices. We've made choices in order to invest in our NHS, and I'm going harder on reform. We're abolishing NHS England, getting rid of layers of waste and bureaucracy. We are going further and faster on that. And I've got loads of people, Trevor, every week saying, oh, hang on, you don't want to go too fast on that. You want to go slower. But the country's crying out for change. So that's what the Prime Minister's talking about and saying going further and faster.
So you've made all these choices, you defend them, and as far as you're concerned, you haven't made any mistakes.
Oh, we will make plenty of mistakes.
No, you have not made any mistakes, is the question I asked you.
Well, on all of those decisions, have they been universally popular? No.
No, that's not the question I'm asking you.
Did we know they would be...
Were any of these a mistake?
No. When we made those choices, we knew they would be unpopular, and we knew that they would be opposed. The reason we made those choices because we genuinely believe they're the right choices to get the country out of the massive hole it was left in. And right across the board, whether it's the NHS, whether it's schools, whether it's prisons, whether it's our defence and security, whether it's crime and policing, there were enormous challenges facing this country when we came in, and we've had to make big and sometimes unpopular decisions so that we can face into those challenges and deal with them. People won't thank us if we just kind of go for the easy life. We want to make the right choices.
Summary, you made difficult decisions, you made choices, but they were all excellent choices, and that's why you got hammered in elections and you lost a third of the seats you contested. Does that make... 2/3, I beg your pardon. Does that make sense?
I think that, no, as I said at the top of my answer to the local election results, that people do not yet feel that this country is changing. They have not yet felt and experienced that change.
How brilliant you've been.
No, as I said, Trevor, the challenges we came into were enormous. If people do not feel this country has changed, if they have not seen it move in the right direction by the next general election, then people will look for change elsewhere. We know that.
But you know what this sounds like? It sounds like your sat-nav is telling you you've taken the wrong direction, you're about to drive off a cliff, and your answer is, put your foot down on the accelerator. Don't change direction.
No, the message we've taken from Thursday is people want to see the change they voted for delivered. They want to feel this country is moving in the right direction. We know they're not yet feeling the change, but we've got to go harder and faster at things like cutting NHS waiting lists, getting more police on the streets, returning people to other countries who shouldn't be here. We've actually, on deportation, you mentioned the boats. I mean, on deportations, we've actually got deportations up. Thanks to the Home Secretary's actions. There's more to do. That's why she's been working with France. It's why she's been to Iraq to deal with these problems.
We will return to all of that.
But Trevor, the fundamental point is, with the scale of the challenge we came into, you do not turn around all of those problems in 9 months. You just don't.
You've made this point.
All I'm asking people is to give us time, give us the benefit of the doubt, to give change a chance.
You've made this point. Let's talk about the people who, I think pretty much everybody recognises came out of Thursday very well, which is reform. And you've just raised the issue of immigration. He, of course, ran very heavily on the government's record on immigration. He also ran on net zero. He's been bidding you up. He apparently was agreed with by Tony Blair, who... we can argue about what Tony Blair said, but he basically said that the aim of net zero by 2050 is unrealistic. Farage called for Scunthorpe to be nationalised. You didn't. Is there a real problem for Labour that actually reform is really eating into your traditional working class base?
Well, I think reform is definitely a real threat and one that we take seriously. I think there's clearly... on the right of British politics, a realignment taking place. It's not yet clear whether at the next general election it will be Reform or the Conservatives that are Labour's main challengers. But we've got to take that threat seriously. And in that spirit, I think Reform does deserve more airtime and scrutiny of their policies, because you mentioned the issues that Nigel Farage wanted to fight the local elections on. There were other issues like the NHS where he wilts in the sunlight of scrutiny. He says on one hand, he says people who can pay should pay. And then he says, oh, no, but I still want the NHS. He says he wants an insurance system. But he doesn't say who should pay, how much they should pay. And that is a real threat to the NHS, and one I think we absolutely
Will you
should
start to treat them now as your most serious opposition?
I certainly do treat them as a serious opposition force. As I say, I don't know whether it will be Reform or the Conservatives that emerge as the main threat. I don't have a horse in that race, but like Alien versus Predator, you don't really want either one to win, but one of them will emerge as the main challenger to Labour at the next general election. But as the Prime Minister said in his article over the weekend, we see as the big issues and the big battlegrounds the economy, the cost of living, borders, and the NHS. And we've got to show by the next election real improvement to people's lives and experiences on all three of those issues. And that's what the Prime Minister wants us to go
Finally, can I briefly ask you about the interview given by the Duke of Sussex yesterday, which he says he now plans to ask the government to review the case for his security. Is the Home Secretary minded to do that?
Well, I saw the report he was writing to the Home Secretary, so it's probably for the Home Secretary to reply. There are a couple of things I should just point out. Firstly, as a matter of course, we don't comment on individual security. And secondly, this is an independent process, independent of the Home Secretary. There is a committee that decides on these sorts of security arrangement involving the royal household and security services and government. So it's for the independent process to decide, and that decision was upheld by the court. So
as a matter of principle, the government's view is that it would not be minded to overrule the committee, which is called RAVEC.
It's an independent process, yeah.